Hi friends, welcome to this latest episode of the Nationalist View, and today we have with us a very special guest, Mr. Peter Baum from United Kingdom. Peter, thank you so much for coming to our show and taking time out from your busy schedule.
My pleasure. Thank you it's a privilege to be on your podcast.
Thank you, Peter. And Peter is international affairs editor of the weekly Blitz, which comes out from Bangladesh. But in addition to that, he also has his own blog and he contributes to major and prestigious national and international journals, newspapers. He also appears regularly on television channels and podcasts. So it's a privilege for us that Mr. Baum is here with us. So, Peter, my first question is today we are going to talk about especially Palestine. Because I have seen you have written several articles on Middle East, and Middle East is one of your core area of specialization. So, my first question is, the UK has announced recognition of Palestine as an independent state. So, do you see this as merely a symbolic gesture or a genuine policy shift in London's, Middle East strategy? And overall, we have seen the skirmishes which are happening in, European Union and in UN also over the issue of recognizing Palestine as a separate state. So, in the larger context also, how do you see this decision by Keir Starmer's government?
Yeah, I do see this as a policy change. Um, previous Labour governments have always stated that whilst the two-state solution is their agenda, they would not recognise a state of Palestine until certain commitments had been met. I was at a business conference when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, and Ed Balls, who paradoxically is the husband of Yvette Cooper, the current Foreign Minister, and he held a very senior position in the Blair government, stated to all the audience that no Labour government would recognise a Palestinian state until there were guarantees for Israel's security, and those guarantees have not currently are not there. So I do see this as a change in policy, and it's a coordinated change in policy. It's been done with other actors, of Israel's allies, such as France, Australia, etc. And I think the change of policy has been driven by domestic affairs rather than the wider geopolitical affairs.
So, what are the domestic factors which are driving this policy, as you mentioned now?
Okay. Over the last 15 years, all Western democracies have seen a huge influx of illegal immigration coming into their countries. And most of that illegal immigration fits a certain demographic. Male between the ages of 16 and 50, and of the Muslim faith. And coming from countries which are virulently anti-Christian and anti-Jewish, and where indoctrination of extreme Islam comes through the education system. Now, this has been going on, the immigration's been going on for decades, and those immigrants now feel empowered. They're now second and third generation and are in positions of power in media, in parliament, in NGOs, in all walks of life, and they're a growing population emboldened by this. And one thing that unites Islam, irrespective of the divisions within Islam, such as Sunni and Shia, just as a basic example, one thing that unites Islam is hatred for the Jewish state of Israel. And because of that growing demographic, which has been emboldened, we have seen on our streets quite severe demonstrations and a very strong voting bloc. And this Labour government historically has relied on the immigrants from other countries, once they've retained their citizenship and voting rights, to vote for them. That's their normal demographic. They will lose that demographic if they don't align themselves with the anti-Israel bloc that unites that particular demographic. So that's why I say I believe that in all those countries, domestic issues have been the main driver rather than geopolitical issues. If there was no, if the Labour government here or in Australia or in Mr. Macron could rely on those votes as they have done previously, with the Israel-Palestinian issue not being an issue, then I truly believe the state of Palestine would not have been recognised by those three countries. But because it's such an important factor for that particular demographic, that's why I believe those countries did something to try and win back their lost votes. They haven't a snowball's chance in hell of winning back those lost votes, because other political parties, more extreme political parties, have come to the fore, and they will definitely move away from their traditional party base.
Peter, now another interesting situation has emerged that after UK recognized Palestine as a separate state, so now Palestine is demanding a compensation of almost the Palestinian Authority is demanding a compensation, which people also call reparation, of around 2 trillion pounds, pound sterling. So from UK, and that is basically because UK had ruled that territory from 1917 to 1948. Now, this is a very strange, paradoxical, or ironical situation, what you may call. So, how realistic, is this demand, and what precedent could it create, internationally? And do you think that this after this demand has come, that there is some rethinking which might be happening in the power corridors of UK and probably in other European countries also?
Well, I think by recognising the state of Palestine, specifically for the United Kingdom government, they have opened a can of worms, as we say, because there are members of this current government that are very keen on reparations. David Lammy, our ex-Foreign Secretary and now the Deputy Prime Minister, has stated time and time again that reparations should be paid to the Caribbean nations because of the horrors of slavery imposed upon them by the United Kingdom. Incidentally, he makes no reference to any reparations being made by Muslim countries because of the Arab slavery trade, which far outweighed what the United Kingdom did to slavery. So if the Palestinians are shrewd about this, they will make reparations an issue, because it will further enhance the embarrassment for any incoming government. And it would have to take a strong government, such as if Nigel Farage's Reform win the next election, to say, sorry, chaps, we're not in the game of reparations. What's past is past. But the Labour government, who have another 3.5 years to go, and being open to the idea of reparations for other countries, and we've seen it with what's happened with the Chagos Islands and Mauritius, for example, as well as what I've mentioned about the Caribbean countries. If the Palestinians are shrewd about this, and I think they will be, they will go hell for leather in going through the various channels, legal, maybe through the various courts that have been set up by the United Nations, whether it's the ICC or the ICJ, and they will ensure the media that they have, certainly the left-wing media and Al Jazeera, for example, continue to promote the subject of reparations. The figures are absurd because there is absolutely no way the United Kingdom can't pay winter fuel bills for its pensioners, which amount to 500 million. So there's no way that they're going to be able to repay to the Palestinians what they so ill deserve, I should say. But if the Palestinians are clever about this, they will continue to promote this as part of their agenda.
No, that brings us to another issue that do you think that this announcement or this recognition of Palestine as as a separate state is ultimately a move towards a situation where Palestine again will be taken over by Hamas? We know that there is an Israel-Hamas war going on, and
Ah,
Hamas
good,
and Israel has been able to push back and almost kind of take 80% of the Gaza territory.
great question.
Recognition of this Palestine as a separate state. So right now it may be a civilian Palestine Authority, but that might be just the optics, and ultimately it is Hamas which is going to rule Palestine, and that too as a separate state, which will be a rogue state. So how do you look at this possibility of Hamas
Okay,
taking Palestine?
that's a great question, and we have to dissect it piece by piece. Let's just row back and see and look into the statements made by the various European leaders who a couple of days ago recognised the state of Palestine. All of them said, a state of Palestine must exist, but Hamas will have no part in the state of Palestine. Now, just think about that. Let's say the Palestinians themselves want Hamas to be part of the government of Palestine. Who are the Europeans to say that, I'm sorry, chaps, but we've recognised you, but not on the terms that you want? This is like going back to 17th and 18th century colonialism. It's an absurdity. I thought we'd gone past that. It's not up to the United Kingdom to tell any country what government, what party they should have in place. Imagine Donald Trump saying to the United Kingdom, well, we're not going to deal with you chaps unless you've got a Tory government in. It's an absolute absurdity. So the mere fact that they've recognised the state of Palestine, but on terms that will only suit them, is stupidity. What they should have done is said, we will recognise the state of Palestine as soon as Hamas lay down their arms and denounce their military activity. There would still be room, I think, for Hamas to act as a political player, but not for those that have just recognised the state of Palestine, but certainly not as a terrorist active group. So that's what they should have done, but they didn't. And by doing that, again, they've left themselves open to criticism, warranted criticism, because it's not up to any foreign country to determine the makeup of the government in that particular country that they've just recognised. Believe me, I don't want, and no morally decent person wants Hamas to be part of government. But if the Palestinians want it, and the Europeans have recognised a Palestinian state, then it's up to them. Now, this begs another question going forward. It's clear that the Netanyahu government have been given the green light by the Trump administration to enforce their will on Hamas, but by destroying it. I don't think they will be able to destroy it completely, but they can certainly weaken it to a point where it's no longer a threat to Israel. The only things that will stop Netanyahu and his cabinet and the IDF fulfilling that objective is either Donald Trump gets fed up and saying it's taking too long, chaps, it's got to stop, or domestically, if the Israeli population, who are already sick and tired of this war, they've been traumatized by it, they don't want it to go on, becomes the majority, in which case Netanyahu would have to maybe have an election, because many of his government seats would leave him. If those two things combined at the same time, then Netanyahu and the IDF will not be able to fulfill their objectives of destroying Hamas. However, if they are able to fulfill those objectives, and we have to be very realistic here, the Israeli military have said it's going to take 2 to 3 months. So just before the end of this year, I think Trump will run with them until that time, but thereafter I don't think he will. So it's absolutely essential for Hamas to be totally defeated, that time frame happens within 2 or 3 months. Now, there's another thing that's going on, which is very well, it's never reported in the press, but Israel is making commitments now to various Palestinian family clans who are anti-Hamas. And it could be that those powerful family clans will be the new, will form the new government in Gaza, and there would be no need for Israel to take control of Gaza 100%. I think they will create a buffer zone of, I don't know, let's see, maybe half a mile wide or something like that. But they certainly don't want to run Gaza or to take control of it, but they want to undertake the main objective, which at the moment Donald Trump is letting them do, and that is to defeat Hamas militarily. If they can't, then I'm afraid that begs the question, what do the European countries do about recognizing the state of Palestine if Hamas are going to form part of that government?
Uh, Peter, there's another issue which has come up with the recognition of Palestine as a separate state. Now, what are its global implications in terms of there has been a massive counter-terrorism effort going on as far as in this part of the world, in South Asia also, like India is fighting with this Islamic radicalization. So Hamas and all these outfits, which have come out of the so-called Palestinian state or who are related to the Palestinian state, like the Houthis and the Hezbollahs and the Hamas. So all of them basically, and it's a core question of Islamic radicalization. As you mentioned also that, a large section of Muslims, so they have got this pathological hatred towards Jews and the Jewish state. So, now you have recognized Palestine as a separate state. So, what are its implications as for the global security and for the international counter-terrorism efforts,
Yeah,
especially against Islamic radicalization? Yeah.
I think it's given a green light for Islamic terrorism to continue and to thrive. And it is a real kick in the teeth to those countries who are threatened by Islamic terrorism. When it was announced that the state of Palestine would be recognized by Israel's allies, Hamas were overjoyed, as can be seen from the statement. This is frankly rewarding terrorism, despite the rhetoric from those nations saying, no, 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 it's not rewarding terrorism, it's pushing forward the two-state solution. It is not doing that. And I fear for those countries weaker than Israel. I don't include India in that, I must say. India is a very strong military country. But there are other countries in Africa, for example, where Islamic terrorism is on an upward spiraling trajectory, and I fear for the populations of those countries who 30 years from now may well become Islamic countries. So instead of there being 50 plus Islamic countries in the United Nations, there could well be more than 70. In the West, in the United Kingdom specifically, we have woken up to this. If there was a general election tomorrow, I can assure you that the Reform Party, which is very strong against, let's say, Islamic indoctrination, very strong against Islamic illegal immigration into the UK, would win. I think if there was a general election in France, probably Marine Le Pen's party would win. So the right-wing parties, if there were general elections now, and probably in Australia too. So it could be that this saturation tide of pandering to extreme Islamic ideology could be turned in the next 3 or 4 years, providing the polls are currently correct, which would seem to suggest that the right-wing parties in Europe would definitely win an election. Wilders would probably win in the Netherlands. There's a very strong, almost fascist party in Belgium that is gaining momentum. And similarly, in Spain, the Vox party, I think, would defeat Sanchez's current left-wing party. So geopolitically, where we are now, it seems as if we have given in to Islamic extremism, but that could be reversed 3, 4 years down the road if the current polling is right. I see no way back for the Labour Party from where they are now for a whole host of reasons. If the economy was doing well, they may have a chance, but it's not. But most people in the street are focused against pushing back the tide of illegal immigration, and most of it, as you well know, comes from Muslim countries.
My last question, Peter, is about specifically about UK. I want you to share an overview, if you can give a brief overview of what is happening in UK in terms of the impact of Islamic radicalizations. We see on television and on digital media, images and visuals where we see there was a big march which was organized recently against, kind of taking the Britain back. We also know we have seen, riots which happened in Leicester. So apart from that, the things which I had a conversation with David Vance also on this podcast. So we have seen, the grooming gangs uh, who have raped, young teenage adolescent girls and have gone scot-free. And then you have a mayor of London who is notoriously backing, the Islamic radicalization. So, what is the churn which is happening in UK as a society, and how do you look forward? Where UK as a society is, going to look forward to?
Okay. At the moment, we are a very divided society, and it's like a football team. On the one side, you have the growing um, Islamic population, which in 30 years' time, if statistics about population growth are correct, will become at least half the population, 30 or 40 years' time. So you have a growing Muslim population supported by what I call the far left or the progressives, or some people call them the liberal media. For some absurd reason, I think it goes back to the days of the Cold War. The far left, the progressives, always were supporting the totalitarian regimes of Russia and what they were doing in Eastern Europe. Since the fall of the Berlin Wall, they've now aligned themselves to Islamic extremism. So those two elements within our society are very vocal, very outraged and protest frequently, very violent. And then on the other hand, you have this, what was the silent majority. But the silent majority has been so hurt and is so frustrated and is so angry at those two demographics that they have begun to raise their voice under the flag of British patriotism, nationalism, call it what you like, and they, of course, are deemed far right. But most people within that collective are simply ordinary family people who have seen their culture, their British culture eroded, have seen the economic environment stagnate, in fact, decline dramatically, and more importantly, have seen financial assistance given to incoming illegal immigrants, which they are not receiving. That there are veterans from various conflicts, the Afghanistan conflict, some even from the Falklands conflict, perhaps, and Iraq, that are homeless and on our streets. So society, going back to your question, how is British society reacting? It's acting very strongly, and that's why the Reform Party, which is the voice of that disaffected group, is doing so well in the polls. It's suggested, and we know that polls can be wrong, we do know that, but month after month, time after time, we've seen the Reform Party grow and the Labour Party weaken dramatically. But the Labour Party is being driven further left by two other parties. The party just set up by Mr. Corbyn and Zara Sultana, which undoubtedly panders to Muslim extremism and the far left. And we also have the Green Party. I reckon when the next election comes, those two parties will merge. I have no doubt about that. And if a right of centre party wishes to win power, which it surely does, then the Tory party will have to do some kind of deal with the Reform Party in order to ensure that the far left don't form a government. So at the moment, we're completely divided as a society. We see it on our streets week after week with protests and counter-protests. We see crime soaring dramatically in London to the extent that I tell you no lie, and your viewers may not believe this, but it's absolutely true. It's now the police, the Metropolitan Police in London under Mayor Khan. If you go into a store and shoplift, provided the value of your goods is no more than £200, that's the level people have put on it, the police will take no action. Now just imagine that. Crime is rife. It's in London under Mayor Khan, unfortunately, has deteriorated into a city that is like a third world city, driven with crime. It can be stopped. Donald Trump has stopped it in the States by stopping the flow of illegal immigration. He's stopped it in the sanctuary cities where he's put in the National Guard. So it can be done. That will probably be unpalatable to English people, but actually it may not be. I think there would, if a government came in that was Trumpist in nature, I think there would be, the silent majority would be behind them. But as I said, the silent majority is getting a voice now, and we're seeing it on the streets. It's under the British patriotism or British nationalism, call it what you like, but it's not fascist, it's not right wing, it's simply people fed up with what's gone on in the last 20 years. It's as simple as that, my friend.
No, I absolutely agree with you because we have faced, similar situation in a number of areas in India. So when no, and I think probably the most dangerous combination is this left and Islamist combination, which is kind of ravaging the world. Though I said this is the last question, but one more question I want to ask. It's how do you see the reaction of British media to this? Because we see the BBCs and the Guardians and the Financial Times, so they seem to be not highlighting the aspects about which we have discussed. They seem to be presenting this patriotic nationalist,
Okay,
British
this is interesting.
society, that section as a fascist, because they are the ones basically who are projecting them as fascists, as
Okay,
extremists
okay.
throughout the world. So how do you see this reaction? And
So
is there a
the
section of British press which is also giving the true picture?
so for decades now, the BBC um, has followed um, a very left-wing ideology, undermining Judeo-Christian values and being very negative on those countries that have a problem with Islam, such as Israel and India. There's no doubt about it. Latterly, they've been supported by other media channels, certainly Al Jazeera, which is simply a propaganda arm for for Islamic terrorism. There's no doubt about it. Sky News is also very, very left wing, as is ITV and Channel 4. There's been a pushback. And talking about the television, sorry, and the newspapers, then other than the Daily Mail and Daily Express, most other mainstream newspapers are also fall into the BBC camp, very left wing. However, there's been a fight back. Two channels, Talk TV, which is on YouTube mainly for us and but not on mainstream television, and GB News are really building up a growing viewing audience. Now, GB News, quite incredibly, last month for the I think I've got this right, for the previous 3 months, when viewing audience figures were um, uh, uh, put out, had more viewers than BBC News. This, to me, was the most incredible statistic that I have seen in all my years of pro-activism, of research, of political activism, of following the media. It was incredible. It's even more incredible given that the advertising industry has boycotted GB News. You won't find any major advertisers on there, but that will have to change because GB News is growing. And just this last 2 weeks, I noticed that a couple of big players started to advertise on GB News. So this gives you a kind of feeling as to what the silent majority in the UK are feeling about British media. The BBC is no longer the trusted organisation it once was. It has lost the trust of the vast majority of I would say the majority of the British people. Abroad, the BBC still holds this undeserved reputation of being a trusted media outlet, but it isn't. It's very, very left wing. And as I said to you, it's very pro Islamic extremism. It still doesn't, for example, it still doesn't call Hamas, a prescribed terrorist organisation by the UK government, a terrorist organisation. It refers to them as a militant organisation. That gives you some idea. And I've seen other Islamic groups operating to create chaos in Punjab and in India, referred to as militant organisations and not terrorist organisations. So that gives you a picture. But the fact that there are two right-of-centre media outlets challenging and growing gives me hope that the Islamic extremists combined with the left-wing fascists, as I call them, will be challenged to the extent that they will not be the influence they have been over the last 10 or 20 years.
Thank you, Peter, for taking time out from your busy schedule and sharing such deep insights with our viewers. And we hope to host you again soon and have another interesting conversation. And for our viewers, we'll be sharing links of some of the articles by Mr. Peter Baum in the description box. And we'll also be sharing a link of his blog. So you can go there, access it there, and comment in the YouTube comment box. And if you have any queries for Mr. Peter Baum, you can post them in the comment box of the YouTube video, and we will take these questions to Mr. Baum and try to get answer for that also. So thank you once again for watching this. And if you have liked the video, please share it, like it, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, Mr. Baum. Thank you, Peter, once again for
Thanks for having
joining
me.
us and sharing your deep insight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.